Hey guys, welcome back to Team Death Slinger. My name is Peter, and today we're going to talk about what Bandai needs to do to save Digimon in 2025. Okay, that might be a bit dramatic, but what we are going to talk about is the growing community sentiment, perhaps, of some displeasure with the direction that the card game is going. There's been a lot of talk about the need for a ban list, and I think a step further than that, there's a lot of people who feel a certain way about the speed of the game, the amount of OTK decks in the meta, the strength of decks in general, and some maybe decision making by Bandai. So, what are we going to talk about in ways that Bandai can solve these issues? So, I see it as there are two options to kind of curb the issues that we're dealing with. The first would be formats and rotations. I am a huge proponent of formats and rotations. Also, online client asterisk question mark. We'll talk about that in a second. And the other option is a nuclear ban list. I would like to preface and say I am much more in favor of formats and rotations than I am in a heavy-handed ban list that hits a lot of decks. But I think that these are boiled down the two possible solutions to some of the issues we have today, and I don't necessarily even think that the second option or the first option fix the issue entirely. I think it's going to stem from something else, and we'll talk about that. So, let's start with formats. We have our funny Chaos Gallantmon here. You can't see him because my face is over his face. Just pretend that I am Chaos Gallantmon, and you can see we're going to use him as an example for what we're talking about. So, the easiest implementation of formats that you could use would be using the numbered blocks on the cards. If you will look at the bottom right of Chaos Gallantmon, right under that EX4 with his card number and his rarity, you can see O2. He is from block 2. And I would say the easiest way we can do formats would be to use the block numbers to break up our formats. So blocks 1 and 2 perhaps would be what we could call vintage. 3 and 4 would be standard, as they're the most modern two sets. Those sets would change to be the two newest sets rather than hardlock to 3 and 4, and things could be adjusted down the road as we get more than 4 blocks. And then including all blocks would be the unlimited format, similar to what Yu-Gi-Oh does. It would just be everything. You can play everything. If it's not on the ban list, you use it, and this is probably what tournaments would be played in. The other formats being alternative formats that you can play at your card store or in Bandai sanctioned events. And we don't have to limit it to just the block numbers on the card as our formats. There are other options for formats as well. You can do custom restriction events. A good example of this would be Ultimate Cup is technically a custom restriction event. There were monocolor cups that they ran in JP, I think China as well. They did monocolor cups. And we could restrict things like the color you're allowed to play, the rarity of cards that you use, the card quantity. This is just a fancy way of saying Highlander. Card types. So we could say you're not allowed to use options. You're not allowed to use tamers. You can only use rookies, things like that. Just that would be your blanket. We're only using this type of stipulation. There are other themes you could apply, so we could say only Dragonkin, only things that have dark in their type, like Dark Knight, Dark whatever, Dark Animal. And then there's obviously Commander format. We could borrow from Magic. We could say we're going to do 100 card Highlander format. And, you can, any spin you want to put on this, you could use as a custom restriction event. And I think there are some pros and cons that come from this approach. Pros, there are more ways to play. People who are frustrated or bored with what we consider our unlimited format, people who feel the power level is too high, you now have your pick of the litter for ways to play. And if we put these on rotation so that there's a set number of them each year, well, now you can choose what events you want to play in and potentially get some prizes that way. It also creates a separation of power levels. If you have broken up by blocks, well, clearly our first two blocks are much weaker than our more modern blocks, and if you want to play a lower power level format, well, you can go play vintage. And if you want to play something stronger, you go play unlimited or you go play standard. We also have an outlet for OG players to enjoy older card design. If you are sitting here with your binder full of cards from BT1 through BT6 that aren't getting played anywhere, well, congratulations. Now you have a way to whip out that binder, start building a deck from your old cards, and do something with them. And a symptom of that would likely be the increase in value of older cards. If we find out, going back to vintage, that, well, your old Omnimons and your old, like Lava Garidamon as a board wipe or something is actually super playable, and, it's an SR from that set that normally wouldn't be worth anything because who needs it? Well, now, it might be worth, instead of 10 cents, maybe it's worth $1 or $2, and you're kind of creating value in older collections as well. So now, what are the cons for this? Cons, we require more support from Bandai. And if you follow Digimon's competitive anything, you know that Bandai, for some reason, really, really hates giving us support. Our prize support is traditionally not the greatest. The amount of events they run has been relatively dissatisfactory to a lot of players. Granted, it is getting better. And this would involve, we would need a lot more of that. We would need prizes for these different events that is attractive and makes people want to play it. We need a reason to play. And we would need Bandai to actually want to run these events, have TOs, and give us, again, give us a reason to play and make the events. This also requires a shift in product design. It requires community interest in new formats. Like, these formats don't thrive unless people want to play it. And more than likely, if you're playing competitive in the first place, you're not going to want to play if there's not a prize worth playing for. I don't think just throwing the same event packs on the different formats would incentivize people to play. I think you need probably prizes that are unique to the format, much like the Ultimate Cup prizing, maybe slightly more appealing than Ultimate Cup prizing, because I see a lot of people who aren't particularly impressed with that. And lastly, as an issue, this does not change power creep in Unlimited. So if you're unsatisfied with Unlimited and you think that this is the only way to play, you really have the mentality of, why do I care about other formats? I don't want to play that. I just want to play the game. Well, now we have an issue that the game still has the issues that it had before. These issues are not solved because Unlimited is still really, really strong, and you still need an updated ban list. So, hand in hand with that, online client. Now, before anyone says anything, I know we have an online client. I'm well aware. However, this online client has some issues that I think would be solved by an official client. So what do we need from an online client, and why do I think it has to be an official client? We need the ability to play new cards in sync with global release. And this is something that Huang Zero and his team, I love them to death. I appreciate what they've done for the community, offering us a way to play online. That is huge. But what they cannot do is release new patches in sync with global card release. If you're telling me that we could have a global physical release with the unification of the card game at the same time, the same day that a patch goes live for, the official Digimon client, that would just be great. There's a lot of people who would love that. I would also like to see support for events that are previously mentioned, like in the slide before. If you've ever played Master Duel for Yu-Gi-Oh, you would know that on the homepage, sometimes they do these events where you're required to play a specific deck or follow a stipulation. You play a bunch of games and they'll give you a prize. If you win a certain number of games, get a certain number of points, whatever it is. We just need to do that. That's how you get people engaged in other formats and get people to try it and see if they enjoy it. You just put that right on the homepage. You go, play 15 games of Vintage. You could even do like like Hearthstone used to have like missions. They're tasks that you accomplish throughout the day that give you in-game currency. You say, you go play in the Vintage format, 15 games, you get however much in-game currency. And going hand in hand with that, give me some sparkly rarity thing like in Master Duel where you get the prismatic rares. Just give me that so that we have something to craft with our in-game currency. That would be amazing. Speaking of in-game currency, give me the ability to craft cards and packs. If I melt down my cards, I should be able to craft cards and packs. That's how you get people to keep playing. The ability to host tournaments would be amazing. If you could invite 16 people, 32 people to a lobby, well, now you have an easy way to make content. You have an easy way to play with your friends and engage the community in a wider way. Allowing for custom rule sets, whether it's in 1v1 custom battles or in tournaments, would also be insane. So now you can set your tournament to be a Vintage tournament, or custom rule set, everybody only starts with 3 cards in their hand, or whatever you want to do. Just allow the players to do it so they can be creative and keep finding ways to play the game and give you money. Speaking of money, cash shop for cosmetics and packs. Let's not all pretend that we are not suckers for individualization and personalization of our things. If we have a way to flex our personality, our creativity, whatever it is, we want to do it. And a cash shop would be a good way for Bandai to make money back by offering us cosmetics and things like that. So I would really like to see an online client go hand in hand with new formats and things like that. I would like an online client, period, but I think it would really shine if it embraced the multi-format idea and used it as ways to offer missions and incentives and stuff like that. So, as a disclaimer before we get to the ban list, any hypothetical ban list does not solve the long-term issues of the game if Bandai does not adjust its card design philosophy and move away from higher levels of power creep to keep players happy. A ceiling that a majority of players enjoy must be found, and card power should be kept under that ceiling, reserving the ban list for decks that break the ceiling instead of using it to rotate cards at the top of the meta. What do I mean by this? Because this is a long-winded way of saying something very simple. What I mean is cards that break the game should be banned. Things like Apocalypse should probably be banned. That does not go hand in hand with the ban list I'm about to present because things are kind of out of hand right now. But I think overall we should be banning cards that break the power level of the deck that of the game that we want the game to play at, not cards that are necessarily a hindrance. I think things like Jet Sylphimon probably shouldn't be banned. It lets you recover. It's not necessarily broken. Apocalypse milling out your opponent in like 3 turns, that's probably broken. It should stay on the ban list. So if Bandai does not adjust their philosophy and they keep just making more and more super powerful cards, well, we're going to have an issue because things are going to keep going on the ban list rather than the health of the game kind of recovering or plateauing at a certain level. The way it works is we have a floor, we have a ceiling. Went a bit too high, we ban things. Oh, and now the floor is here because that's where we set the ban list. And now things start going back up. We ban some things, now the floor is here. And Bandai keeps doing this. We're raising the floor, we're raising the ceiling, and it's a problem. So if Bandai doesn't adjust its philosophy for card design and stop just keep upping and upping and upping the power creep, well, now we have an issue. And that's also an issue for selling cards. I understand that as well. But there has to be a limit. There has to be pacing. And I don't think a ban list solves any of these issues. So with that said, restrictions. In my nuclear ban list world, things... I know I'm going to miss some decks. I know that these are not all going to be popular decisions. I'm aware of these things. I did my best. That's all I'm going to say. So, 14 cards that need to be restricted, in my opinion. First, BT16 Ukomon. Let's boil down what this card does for one memory as it hatches you an egg, it searches top 3 for a piece, and it's going to give you a chip damage. This does a lot. I don't think I would have an issue with this card if it just searched top 3 and gave you a chip damage, but hatching an egg is really, really strong. You're going to get 4 cards deep if you count the draw off of this, and then you're going to get to draw another card when you evo the rookie on the egg that you hatch, and you're just going to start enacting your game plan, and this lowers the bar for the amount of damage a deck needs to do to OTK by 1, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but it kind of is. So I think that card is really strong. I think it kind of speaks for itself. Dober X. Now, I love purple. Everybody on this channel knows I love purple. This card is a problem, and if we're going to abide by the standards that I set when you see the rest of the cards on this restriction list, this card has to go, and that is because of its inheritable, giving you a memory when you evo. We're going to be hitting probably the entirety of the Dark Animal engine, and if we did that and we left over X, well, there are other ways to get 2 memory back going into a level 5 outside of the Dark Animal engine if we leave this card available. So we're going to hit this card to make sure that we're trying to move purple away from these efficiency engines that just give you memory when you play Digimon by an effect or when you discard a card. So this has to be hit for the sake of moving purple into a new direction and stopping the bottlenecking of purple design in the future. XVmon, Stingmon. Listen, man, these guys are really, really, really efficient. You have so many ways to play rookies for free, and this is just going to effectively give you 2 memory back on the DNA. It's really, really, really good. So I just think these guys have to be restricted. You could probably get away with restricting one over the other. I could see that being reasonable, especially considering some of the other restrictions on this list. But I put them both on here for the sake of consistency. And likewise, we're talking about accelerants here, Agumon and Lobomon. Being able to warp into your level 6, I think is really, really good. It's on Evo as well. It's not on attack. So basically, you go from a rookie into your level 6, and you're answering your opponent's board with the 1 card. And I just don't think accelerating to that degree is necessarily healthy. I know that Ancient Garurumon plays you a Tamer back. I'm not sure if Ancient Greymon does the same. I'm going to confess to that right now. But I just think these guys are really good for what they do. They allow large momentum swings, and they're really, really fast cards. So I think these are good ways to hit the 2 decks that these come out of respectively, because we are hitting a lot of the top decks with this restricted list, and I don't think it's a necessarily egregious way to hit the 2 decks that these come out of. Next would be Cerberus X. Probably the single best card in the Dark Animal engine. You draw 1, you trash 1, you play a level 3. This gains memory from every single way purple has to gain memory in its archetype, and then it gives you an inheritable that lets you delete something to unsuspend. We can see how that's overbearing in Lord Nightmon X. This is part of all kinds of purple combo decks where you want to OTK. You can use this in Titamon, you can use this in Chaos Gallantmon. Anything that has a way to get an extra security +1 modifier can use this to OTK. And because Black Growlmon also exists in purple, well, now you can use literally any purple level 6 as long as you have a way to delete a Digimon to trigger the Black Growlmon. So I think this card is just probably the best purple level 5 in the game. Restricted to 1, just let the Dark Animal engine rest in peace, rest in its memory of what it used to be. Mirage Galgamon. This card has been good forever. This deck has been good forever. I am sorry, every Mirage player under the sun. I understand this is your only viable level 6. What Bandai needs to do is print you a new Mirage Galgamon and let that be meta and stop letting this card run amok. It's really good in Galaxy Engine. It's really good in its own deck. It's super generic, good effect, and it's a little bit overbearing at this moment. I could see this being a card that could maybe come off in the future, but right now, I think this card is too much. Magna X. We were talking about floors and ceilings earlier. This card I could see an argument for one way or the other, but I think if we're trying to lower the overall power level of everything, Magna X is a problem because we're talking about setting a floor, and Magna X is the floor of competitive. Magna X is the deck where if you do not have an answer for Magna X, you have a problem because you need to get past Magna X to exist in competitive, and when we're bringing the power level of everything down, I worry about other decks' ability to answer Magna X. Again, I think this could go either way. I just think it's kind of unhealthy card design at this moment. Next, Ruin Mode. I've heard conversations about Ruin Mode and Death X. They're both methods of counterplay. They need to exist because this is the only level 7 counterplay we have, and yada yada. I will agree for Death X. I think Death X is a great punishing card for players who overextend and put all their resources on the board, and it's a good way to curb them from winning the game extremely quickly. Ruin Mode, on the other hand, is a great way to lock your opponent out while netting a crap ton of value. This guy is going to apply usually 2 turns of lockout on your opponent. He's going to let you recover 1. He's going to delete a Digimon on the way out, and he's going to hatch you an egg. He just does so much for you, and I think rather than consistently seeing the opponent have the out when they need it, which is the Ruin Mode, like, you know, if you have it, you win type of thing. Now it's at 1. You're going to more have to hope that you have it than know that you have it. I could also see an argument for this card being banned, to be entirely honest with you. Looking at the data that I have from my stats tool, I know this card sees its most frequent usage at between 1 and 2 copies. It's like 1.4 something, which means more than likely people are running this at 1, and restricting it to 1 might not do anything. But I think that would be subject to analysis after the ban list would go live, see how this card is doing. If it's still running literally every deck, maybe it needs to get banned. But that's subjective at this moment. Coincide. Just like Mirage players, I'm sorry, Galaxy players, your engine is being used for evil deeds that they were not intended to be used for. I don't think a banned pairing between this card and Mirage is necessarily the answer, because you can throw literally anything else on top of the Galaxy engine. I think Galaxy engine probably wasn't intended to be used in the capacity that's being used, and I think if you drop Mirage without hitting this card, you're just running Hexablow, you're running Ancient Garurumon, you're running all kinds of blue or red top ends that can abuse the Galaxy engine, so it's probably just better to restrict this to 1 or ban it, and then print new Galaxy support for the poor Galaxy players who like this card. Next, X-Antibody Protoform. I also love this card, but here's the issue. Outside of its cost being $50 and the fact that we're not getting a reprint, this card is an accelerant for every single X-Antibody deck that exists. You get to Evo for 1 cheaper, and then on top of that, it's going to recover you 1 security and grab you a piece back. This card does a lot for 0 memory, and the stipulations on the card are not that crazy. You have to run it in an archetype that wants to see it anyways. And we're not going to pretend like that's hard or a crazy stipulation. This card is just pure advantage for 0 memory. It even gains you a memory. This card could read gain 1 memory, because that is effectively what it does. It's just really strong. I don't think it's healthy, so we're going to put it at 1. Jack Raid. I have a reason for this. That reason is that Hammer Spark is banned. Hammer Spark gains you memory. Jack Raid is a card that teeters on the edge of being fair and unfair by what engines exist that can put things in the trash. I think it's probably better to nip this in the bud. We saw Hammer Spark get out of control recently. I think Jack's Raid is, again, teetering on the edge of being out of control. I think it's really, really good in Purple Hybrid. I'm sure you can probably make some kind of Purple Hybrid Lilith loop that would absolutely crack this card. And I think it's probably just better if we're removing accelerants from the game, that we get rid of Jack's Raid as well. And in the same vein, the last card on the restriction list, Gravity Crush, gain 2 memory at the end of turn, lose 2 memory. I can already hear the argument that this isn't that good because you lose 2 memory, and my counterpoint is, if you win the game, it doesn't matter. If you have 3 of these in your hand and you just pop them all playing red whatever and you can win the game off of it, it does not matter that you would lose your memory at the end of turn. You are pushing for game with this card, and in that nature, it is an accelerant. Like all the things on this list, most of the things on this list are things that accelerate your game plan and make their respective decks really, really strong. So that is more or less the guidelines that I use for the restricted list. I'm sure, I know I missed cards. You should put them in the comments down below so we can talk about it, but I don't know what they are off the top of my head, and I did some looking, and this is what stood out to me. So that being said, what cards are we banning? I think there are 3 cards that are egregious and potential design problems either now or in the future, and that's why they're on this ban list. So the first card, in the nature of potential problems down the road, Davis and Ken. I know Imperial players probably think I hate them because I've restricted 2 of your cards and I'm banning Davis and Ken, but you need to hear me out. This plays you a level 3, the scrambles play you a level 3, and you can have 1 in raising. It is possible to have a turn where you wind up with, from nothing, having 3 rookies on board, and then this will also gain you a memory when you digivolve, and then you're going to get to trash 3 sources when you DNA. This is a really, really strong card. We're not going to pretend like we're not going to get more Imperial support that will probably also hinge on this card and be really, really busted. And this is also assuming you don't have any setup when you do this. Like, you're going to have other cards that gain you memory or do things with this on the board. It's just strong. And I believe it's probably appropriate to nip it in the bud before the next wave of Imperial support and make sure that things don't go crazy and get out of hand. So that is why this card is on the list. Sorry. Next, Takamikazuchi. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Aside from those of you who play Takamikazuchi, nobody likes Takamikazuchi. Being able to high roll OTK on turn 2 is not good. Being able to scramble into like a 10 memory play and reset to 3 is not good. This card breaks all kinds of rules in the game it exists in, and I don't think it's good. We are getting new Takumi Kazuchi support, and I think we should just ban this Takumi Kazuchi, let the new one ride, and pretend that this one never happened. I think that would be the best course of action. Lastly, Goblymon, my boy, my little goblin, my little dude. He just gains you a memory as a rookie, and there's so many cards that this works with, and so many ways that you can break this card that I think it's probably better to just nip it in the bud and say that this was too hardcore of an accelerant for purple. The only two options you would have would be Bandai being extremely careful not to print anything that synergizes too hard with this card. Otherwise, we go right back to the purple engine that we had before of just really, really, really efficient purple engines and homogenizing purple as a color entirely. So while the other Dark Animal engine elements get restricted, I think this one gets banned. We put it away in the closet. We never let him out again. The Goblin is gone. So, in conclusion, my boys, my friends, Bandai needs to create more diversity and less OTK one way or another. Personally, me, really, what I want, with my dream, I just want some formats, man. Give me more ways to play. Give me support for those formats. Give me prizing for those formats. People want to play Digimon. People want to enjoy it, and we just need Bandai to let us do it and support us in doing that so we can give them money. Secondly, your opinions on the game may be different than mine. That's okay. We all, at the end of the day, we all want to play Digimon. We all want to have fun. We want to enjoy this game, and we all like the game, probably for different reasons. We like different things. Not everybody is some kind of level of freak like me trying to make Chaos Gallantmon work in the year of 2024, okay? We want different things. That's okay. I just ask that you express that respectfully if you're going to express it. Thirdly, this game will probably be fine without either of these options. We've seen Yu-Gi-Oh! Spiral into power creep, and the game is honestly fine. The game's still going, it's still chugging. The game is not going to die as a result of not implementing either of these two options. That's just the fact of it. Fourthly, be nice in the comments. I said that before, but, you know, we're all people. We're all trying to enjoy the game. We all have feelings, so I'm just kind of trying to give my opinion, my 2 cents. That's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Have a nice day. Thank you to our YouTube members for supporting this channel. It's people like Langlong, Big Z11, and Coffee Deus who make videos like this possible.